Today we're going to show you guys how to preserve your farm fresh eggs for a year or even longer. Hey you guys, welcome back to Heartway Farms. We're so glad you're here with us. Before we get started on the topic at hand, which is preserving your farm fresh eggs, make sure you head over to heartwayfarms.com. Check out what the girls have over there. They're making homemade, handmade, beautiful products, raw honey, freshly made elderberry syrup, all sorts of stuff. Go check it out and also hit that subscribe button. We don't want you guys to miss any videos that are coming up. We've got so many amazing projects coming up on the farm and we want to share all of it with you. So today, what are we doing?
Preserving eggs.
We're preserving our eggs. It
Yeah.
is spring.
Yes.
Even though we had snow on the ground not that long ago, it's still spring, and the chickens know that it's spring, and they are laying like champs, right?
Right.
So we have beautiful, beautiful farm fresh eggs every day, and usually in abundance in the spring.
How do chickens know it's springtime?
They just know.
Do
the
they?
sunlight.
Ah, sunlight.
Yeah, sorry.
There we go.
Okay, so Chicken 101. There's more hours of sunlight and there's warmth, and both of these things, mostly the sunlight, creates this.
It is sunlight, 100%.
Okay, it is sunlight 100%.
They are sunbathers.
But the warmth, but they like the warmer
do.
temperatures versus the cold too.
Yes.
So as soon as that happens, it creates this wonderful thing in chickens, and they lay.
Yes.
So it's wonderful. So in the spring, when you have tons of eggs, or even if maybe you don't personally, you may not raise chickens, but go and find your farmers markets or find your farm fresh eggs. We'll talk about that more in a minute. There's specific things you need to ask for, but find somebody who has a ton of eggs and go start buying them and doing this method so that you can preserve food for you and your family, even that would last up to a year from now or plus, and beyond that year, right? Okay, so little history.
Sure.
Go ahead. You give us some history, Mr. History Man.
No, it's interesting. We actually started to do a little bit more history research on this, and back in the 1800s.
The water glassing method of eggs, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Because, as most of you have talked about, especially in the comments, is storage space is a hot commodity, right? We keep on saying that, but freezer space, refrigeration space, any of that stuff. So the more ways that you can find to store food or keep food in a healthy manner long-term without those things because of power outages and food loss and all those things. So that led us down the path of water glassing.
Yes.
Back in the 1800s, before they had the ease of refrigeration, they used this method to store their eggs for a very long time. And we generally speak about a year or just beyond a year. But there have been people who have had them well into 2 years.
Yeah, up to 2 years with this method. Right. And you just like any of the old ways of doing things, in the old-fashioned ways, of course, there's going to be some loss or challenges that happen, and that's okay. That's why you prepare enough, in stock for your family and account for that loss, and then it's okay. But it was kind of fun because we have some. Julianne has some old cookbooks or like old ways books, which are kind of fun. And then my dad also got me the old antique Fanny Farmer cookbook. It's always behind me in our videos. And it stays on my shelf because my dad gave it to me, so it's special. And it was fun because we were looking through them, and they both have water glassing eggs and like the methods behind it and the history behind it, and it's so fun. So what we're sharing with you today is a tried and true method, and you still have to follow certain protocol, which we will get into. But this is something that anyone can do successfully if you follow certain steps, right?
For sure.
So let's get started. It's so easy and very easy. It's hard to mess up as long as you follow the protocol.
So before you get your eggs, what type of container do we need? Let's talk about the size, the type of container.
So if we're talking about containers, there are many opinions about this, but I have my own opinions. I have seen people water glass eggs in food grade 5-gallon buckets.
Okay. What's the major challenge with the 5-gallon bucket?
The reason why we are not doing that, I will share, people put them in huge crocks, huge totes. Food grade is recommended because you're using food, So the reason why we have chosen not to use 5-gallon buckets or larger, this is a 2-gallon crock that I'm going to show you today, and I will show you another container that we're going to use, but this was just so that you can see through this. I wanted to have glass. The reason why we're not using the 5-gallon buckets is because the weight of the eggs, if I'm stacking 5-gallon worth of eggs on top of each other, your likelihood of cracking one of those and wrecking the whole batch is extremely high.
So to help prevent loss, we've chosen to use a smaller container.
Which we can fit a lot in this. We'll show you guys in a little bit.
There's one of them. This is a food grade bucket.
Yeah.
And it's a, 2.5 gallon as well? Roughly?
It looks almost smaller. This is probably maybe a 2-gallon.
Yeah, okay, so it's an old chocolate ice dipping food grade bucket.
Like
it's about 2.5 gallons. So
a friend of ours works at Walmart, and she is able to get us these buckets for no charge.
Right.
And she gives us tons of 5-gallon buckets that we use all over the farm for animals, for feed, for waters, all that stuff. So it's a huge blessing. But she got us this size, and I'm really excited about it because these are food grade buckets and they are clean. They're not nasty, and they're perfect size because I'm not going to worry about the loss of the weight of the eggs crushing each other. The more weight you put on those eggs, the more likelihood you're going to have broken eggs.
Another thing is if you stack them one on top of another, they're about the same size as a 5-gallon bucket.
Yeah.
But it's
storage-wise.
Storage-wise, size-wise. But you're not, that weight of those eggs on top of each other is being broken into smaller containers.
Right.
So there you go.
So this is the container we're going to use today is glass. I'm not anti-using food-grade plastic. There are people that have opinions about that. I'm not worried about it.
Right.
That's just a choice that we are making. So that's the container. Next, let's talk about what eggs. This is very important. And if you don't follow this protocol, you will have loss. And you will be like, why did this not work? First of all, for water glassing eggs, you must use farm fresh, unwashed, clean eggs.
You must use.
You must use. There's a lady, I'm just going to say this not to cause confusion, but there's a lady in one of the Facebook groups that I'm in, and it's a great group where people can kind of talk about ideas, and she did test store-bought eggs, but that is highly not recommended. Like, I'm not telling you to do that. Do not use store-bought eggs. You need to go to a local farm. You need to ask that farmer, hey, can you please give me unwashed eggs, but I need unwashed eggs that aren't covered in manure.
They're relatively clean.
And are not covered in mud, because we know how this goes. It's springtime in Illinois on a farm, and I can guarantee that half of our eggs are messy and dirty right now because there's mud.
Well, and thankfully we have the rollaway nest box that help protect them a lot. So
the rollaways are amazing, and they really help. But you need to request these eggs, I could sell them in our store. They look washed. They look washed, but they're not. I had Marie go downstairs and pick for me 4 dozen of the cleanest eggs that we had.
Right.
And most of the time, you can reach out to a farmer and just tell them what you're doing, and they'll probably know what you're doing.
So these are all fresh eggs that are unwashed, so that means that they also still have the bloom that's around them. So when the egg is laid, they have a natural bloom around them that helps to seal them off and protect them.
Yes.
And that's really what this whole process is driving at, is it's sealing off the ability for oxygen to get in and break down the egg.
Yeah.
So once you stop the oxygen from entering into the egg, there's other methods that people have used in these books that they talked about as well, that mineral oil and different things like that.
Yeah.
But this is a tried and true kind of an easy, less mess of a way than mineral oil and all that stuff.
And I don't like loss. I don't like throwing food away, which doesn't happen often because we have chickens. We feed wasted things to them.
It can always be recycled.
But the goal is to have eggs for my family in the middle of January, when suddenly we don't have eggs or whatever. And with this preservation method, I can bake with these. I can eat them fresh. It doesn't change. The only thing you maybe can't do is get meringue. Make homemade meringue.
Your fluffy
things. But we're talking about stockpile stuff. We're not talking about making meringues, okay? So we can do that with our fresh eggs.
Be a plus though, right? I mean, hey.
So I told you need farm fresh, unwashed, clean eggs.
And they can't be cracked.
They can't be cracked. Okay, so any of you guys that have chickens, you can relate to this. Sometimes I can look at this egg shell and say, oh, it's beautiful, I can sell it. But sometimes when you hold a light to it, this is called candling your eggs. We actually candled all of these already before we started this, and we used the candler on our incubator.
Because they happen to be out and available.
It's available, and it's super bright, so it's really convenient. You can just set the egg on there and do it. But if you have a flashlight and you have an egg, and you just look around, if you see any hairline cracks, do not try to use that egg. You want to start with the best quality eggs that you can start with to keep your chances the best, right?
Because we can eat a cracked egg today. Like we can go through our cracked stuff. Like right now, it's fine, it's edible. But these we want in top condition to put them into here to store them long term.
You're picking the best of the best. So I highly recommend candling every single egg that you are putting into your lime solution.
Yeah, take the time.
Because even if we don't fill up this crock all today, we're going to add to it until it's full and have that down in the basement and then continue to do it with other crocks. So we've talked about the container. We've talked about what type of eggs. Now we're going to talk about how you do this, okay? So today, the lime that I'm going to show you is actually just the Mrs. Wages pickling lime that I picked up from the local Ace hardware store. I believe Walmart sells it online. I believe Amazon sells it.
And come canning season, people start carrying this stuff too a lot more abundantly.
Yeah, so I highly recommend buying it now before the end of, like when when garden season starts to come to the end and everyone is sold out of this. And so this has many different names, and that's fine. It's called pickling lime on here, but what you are looking for is calcium hydroxide. It can also be called hydrated lime, and you can use this, but the same exact thing, like Azure Standard carries 50-pound bags of the calcium hydroxide. It's the same exact thing, okay? This looks pretty and everything, and that comes like in a brown paper bag. It's the same thing. You were just looking for that ingredient. Make sure that you have calcium hydroxide, and usually it says lime in parentheses or whatever by it. So this is what you want. Comes by different names. Don't be confused. But this is, if you're just doing small batches, this will last you for the process. But I'm buying the 50-pound bag, which should last me.
And everyone makes reference to that. And other videos about stocking up is like, they're like, why do you have 100 pounds or 50 pounds of salt? It's because it's something that it doesn't go bad. And if you can stock up on it and you have a bulk of it, it's there for preservation purposes as well. So part of the stocking up is having these things on hand that you can actually store the food that you get when it comes in season when you're producing your own food.
Yes. Okay. And salt can be used for a lot more than just salting your food.
Curing things, preserving things.
That's actually how they used to do this originally before they discovered the liming method was just by salting, heavy salt in the eggs to try to create like that barrier around the egg. Anyway, so it's interesting. There's a lot that you can do with salt. Doesn't hurt to have it in stock. And so, okay, should we get started?
Sure.
So when you are water glassing eggs, there's a ratio that you need to follow. Now, I am going to first put the 4 dozen eggs that we have selected into my crock. But over here, so that we don't have to stick our hands into limey water and dry out our hands, we're going to pre-mix our water and lime solution over here. Okay. The ratio that you want to follow is 1 quart of water, preferably clean filtered water, and make sure that all of your things that you're using are clean. We don't want to give bacteria any room to grow and cause trouble with our food that we're trying to preserve. So the ratio you're going to want to do is 1 quart of water, clean water, to 1 ounce by weight, and I'm going to use my scale, 1 ounce by weight of the lime. Okay, so 1 quart, 1 ounce of lime. Okay. And currently, because we're doing this big crock, we have 4 quarts of water. So we're going to have to measure out 4 ounces of our lime here. Do you want to do that? And I'll start putting eggs.
Sure, this is still pretty sealed off.
Yeah, I just bought that. All right, I'm going to very carefully put these 4 dozen eggs into my crock, and Josh is going to get the right measurement and start mixing our water.
All right, this stuff is powdery too.
Yeah, try not to breathe it in. Yes, you're going to have to tear it out.
Units, ounces, and we want 4 ounces.
Yes.
And I'd say go a little heavy versus light.
Yeah, heaping is okay.
Don't breathe it in.
Yeah, you're not supposed to breathe it in, honey.
So you're carefully putting the eggs in the container.
very carefully. Yes. And if I have a choice, which on the bottom layer you don't have a choice, but if I have a choice, I'm going to try to have the pointy part of the egg facing downward. There's no, at the bottom of the crock, there's really no guarantee that you can do that, and that's okay. This isn't necessarily something that you have to do.
And they're going to shift slightly when you pour the water in there.
Right, so I'm just doing my best. Because anytime you're storing eggs, that's the best way to do it. Okay.
So this is going to be like not even half full probably?
No, we will continue to add to this as Marie gets more clean eggs. That's the best part. And you just continue to add solution too. Right. So you just keep the same ratios, and you can even, I could lid this and set it aside if we don't use all of this today. Or just fill this up to, you know, you can do either or.
The other way of doing it is we can fill it up, and we can, if it gets too full, you can just remove some of the solution as the eggs get put in and get to be too much. That way you're just adding to the vat.
And over time here, you guys, I will show you an update, but just some questions that are gonna come up. It is normal for, the lime is gonna look kind of cloudy and incorporated in here. We're gonna pour it over this. It is 100% normal for the lime to settle in the bottom. Right, and that's okay. And the lime will continue to go up into the water and absorb into it over time. And just don't be alarmed. That is normal to have that settling in the bottom.
It's because you're making a very dense solution.
Yes,
that
you want it to be dense.
Be oversaturated with lime.
All right, I am putting my last egg in for right now. One last thing I want to say about the egg shells. If you've ever had chickens that you have raised, you know every once in a while you get an egg that has a bit of a flimsy shell. Yeah. Do not put those in here, even if it doesn't have a crack. And usually those kind of eggs are the type of eggs where, like, if you just do that, you crack it. Right. I want a good solid shell, because over time, these shells are going to soften and become a little more weak. That's why these eggs are maybe not good, are certainly not good for trying to hard boil. Right. Great for baking, great for eating fresh, that kind of thing. Not great for hard boiling after they have been sitting in this lime solution, because it will mess with the integrity of the shell. Right. Okay.
Soften it up a bit.
Yep, it will soften it.
And I'm gonna take the 4 ounces of the lime, and we're gonna start getting it into this container. Can you grab me a dry spoon real quick?
Yeah.
I might be able to get it here. There we go. Yeah.
The lime is very dusty. Try not to breathe it in the best you can.
And I'm just letting it kind of, it's just grabbing the water and kind of falling here, so I'm not gonna get too crazy with it. Because if you just try to go after it, it's gonna...
Yeah. Slow and steady on this one. There's no reason to have it exploding up in the air and stuff, so.
All right. And this is not milk.
This is lime.
All right.
Hydrated lime.
All mixed in there. You want this lime poured in now?
Yes, please. And you can just pour it all in, because we can add eggs to it as we go.
As we discussed. Like I said, we might need to, because we don't have the full measure of eggs, we might need to have a little bit more solution. Maybe not?
I think we're good.
Get all that lime in there.
Okay, so we have our eggs in here, we have our solution in here, and that is it. You can already see the lime settling in the bottom, and we are going to continue to add clean, unwashed, farm fresh eggs.
With that same solution
mix, if we need to put more in there. Yeah, because you can see we're not all the way at the top. We have 4 dozen eggs in here, and Josh thinks we could probably fit another 3 or 4 dozen eggs in here on top of this at least. Yeah. So this 2-gallon crock is gonna fit a lot of eggs for our family.
Just shy of 100 eggs.
Yeah, and I think I got this for like 12 or 13 bucks at Walmart, so it was very inexpensive.
So in
this is a 1 gallon.
I want to say in this container, we're comparing these, but that 4 dozen eggs probably would have fit perfectly in here. Yeah. And once again, a container that you can get your hands on.
But I love these crocks because there's so many different uses, but we have a bunch of those plastic little totes too that we can use too. Yeah. And again, we're not gonna go bigger than the 2-gallon because we don't wanna have crushed eggs in the bottom because of weight.
And I think like what you're saying too is we don't need airtight, but we do wanna stop that evaporation from taking place. And so having the locking lids with those, they'll definitely help with keeping that long term as well and keeping them stacked and put away the right way.
So we're not going to eat these eggs right now. We're going to wait till winter time when we don't have any farm fresh eggs and we want to have eggs to eat, and we know there are eggs, so they're good quality and we love them. But just something to consider that when we do take eggs out of this solution, I'm going to rinse them off very thoroughly before we eat them.
Right.
This is obviously a food grade lime situation, but it's not something that we want to be eating, right? So it's just protecting our eggs. We don't really want to eat that. So I think that's it.
Yeah.
It's so easy, you guys. Anybody can do it. Just make sure you're using the right things. And yeah, when we're eating these this winter, we will update you and show you how the process went for us.
Thank you guys for joining us today. We hope that this was informational for you and how to water glass and preserve your eggs into the winter and beyond.
Yep.
And we'll be in touch. Have a blessed day.
We'll see y'all soon.